Hello, and welcome to Inside the Third Space. In each episode, we delve into the concept of being in the third space through the unique perspectives of different individuals, uncovering their insights, experiences, and identity. I'm Zara Khan, an education developer at the Medicine and Health faculty at UNSW Sydney. To me, the third space in education refers to an environment where professional and academic staff come together and work closely, benefiting from each other. Today I'm joined by Fiona Nicolson, the manager of the Medicine and Health Education Development Unit. Thanks for joining us today, Fiona.
Thanks, Sarah.
So let's start with some questions. Tell us more about your role. How long have you been at UNSW?
I've been in my current role at UNSW for just over a year in the Faculty of Medicine and Health. But I have previously worked at UNSW. I worked in the Office of the PVCE and also in the Faculty of Art and Design. So I feel like I've got a reasonable history with UNSW. But I have worked in other universities throughout that time as well.
Yeah, that's great. How did you land your role?
I guess ultimately it's a passion for education. I really enjoy working in the education space, particularly in what's being framed as the third space, so that, the work that professional staff and academic staff do collaboratively together. I think it's an area of really amazing potential to develop great things and to drive innovation in education, because you have such a coming together of, diverse skills. You've got academic disciplinary expertise, and then you've got, all that expertise from professional staff, particularly around educational design, curriculum development, the resource development, videos, etc., etc. So when you bring all of that together in the third space, there's a capacity there for some really interesting work. It's quite a dynamic space, so I really enjoy the passion of the people in that area, and also just, I think we love to work together to that common goal of improving the learning experiences of our students.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've landed where you should be. Can you describe your journey toward becoming a third space professional? Or if you have any thoughts about how the third space relates to your role?
So, yes, I started as a teacher who really loved developing curriculum. So I really enjoyed that challenge of working out how to engage students with the content, with each other, and really to create a meaningful learning journey for students. And I really loved the creative component of that. So I started, as a teacher. I moved into working on online and blended courses and designing those courses. I was working on a large curriculum uplift project, which involved doing that. And then I sort of, at that point, became much more interested in educational technologies and how they can really work to create really interesting courses for students. So I think from there I worked as an educational developer, curriculum advisor, both across a range of different faculties and also in central learning and teaching centres. So I think there's lots of this work happening in different places throughout the university, and I've been lucky enough to experience that and really enjoy it. Great.
Well, what does the term third space actually mean to you? Do you remember when you first heard it?
Yeah, I think that term's been around for quite a long time. To me, it's really about academic staff and professional staff working collaboratively together. And I think I mentioned earlier, it's an area where there's potential for great things to happen because you're really pooling a lot of diverse skills.
So what challenges do you face as a third space professional? What do you think are some pain points that you've hit navigating the third space?
I think probably the biggest challenge is around time. Often you're working with academic staff who are really busy, time poor, basically by definition, in terms of juggling research and academic priorities. So you really need to, in order to really get the benefit of the collaboration, academic staff need to be able to carve out the time to focus on the curriculum design or development work. So sometimes that actually means, finding some funds whereby they can buy out their time from perhaps tutoring or marking responsibilities so that they can actually dedicate time to the work. I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And alongside that is having a defined time for projects to actually come to fruition and have outcomes. Without that, with the best will in the world, enthusiasm can dwindle and it just becomes difficult to actually get the outcomes that you had planned at the start. So I think ideally you can plan a project with a lifespan so that the academic can actually buy out their time, or they know what to expect, they know there's an end date and they need to work towards that. It sounds boring, but it's actually really important in terms of giving the project the best possible chance of success. I think the other thing is not to assume that everyone understands each other's expertise. So actually explicitly talking about what the professional staff and the academic staff are both bringing to that project is really important, so that you can value that at the start and you know what you're expecting from each other in terms of input. I think the other thing is to, as a professional staff member, ideally you're able to set up how you want the communication to happen around the work. So what's the best means of communication that's convenient and effective for everyone, and how are you going to work together, when you're going to meet, what can happen online, etc. Just explicitly talking around some of those logistics can actually help you to then focus on the creative aspect of the project, so you don't get caught up in the messy stuff. You've got that sorted and you can then just focus on that creative process. So I think they're kind of lessons learned.
Yeah, wow, thank you. Those are some really good points. I guess following that, considering our current educational landscape, what do you think is important for third space professionals to be doing right now?
I think, and this is something that's, always really important for third space professional staff, is to really be on top of what's happening in the higher education sector, like really understand and do a bit of research around what are the current challenges that are facing higher ed, and find out what people are doing in different disciplines to address that. And then you can use that to inform your own work and your own creative process. Also, I think if you're coming into a new discipline, because I think that's kind of the joy of our work, is that we do actually get to work in different disciplines, things that we may not actually have a background in ourselves. So we're new to that discipline. And when you come into that discipline, I think it's really important to actually find out what it means to work in that discipline. Like, what are the future careers for students studying in that area? What are some of the challenges that those workplaces of the future are actually facing? What are the skill sets that the students are going to need, so that you're not just relying on your academic colleague for that, but you're also informed on that, and that can feed that collaboration, I think, and you can gain a lot of respect from people within that discipline through that interest and going to the effort of finding out what's happening. I think also it's a challenging role, so you do need to do a little bit extra and keep on top of the technologies. So educational technologies are advancing all the time. All sorts of new things come out, and you actually need to know what they are. You need to understand what your enterprise ecosystem of educational technologies looks like, and understand how that can be enhanced, and be prepared to pilot and experiment with your academic colleagues on that. Yeah, and I think always maintain your curiosity for new ways of doing things. Try to think beyond what's happening now, and try to be the person who can actually join those dots together to come up with something that's really useful for students and for teachers.
Fiona, I think that's great. My next question to you was actually going to be, do you have any advice for people who want to explore the third space? But I think you've covered a lot of it. Do you have anything extra that you would say to someone who's wanting to work in the third space?
I think be prepared to work with people of really different personality types, for sure. And also with academic staff, they tend to we might work with someone on one end of this sort of continuum where they're passionate about their discipline and their research, but they're also really excited about education, and they may even have professional qualifications in education. And those sorts of people, they're the ones that when they combine up with the skill set of the professional staff in the third space, that's when you're actually driving innovation and you're doing some cutting edge stuff. But you also need to be aware that that's one end of the continuum, and down the other end of the continuum perhaps is an academic who is also probably, an amazing leader in their discipline, but they may have very little experience with education. And I think try to understand just how exciting that is as well, because you can really have a significant impact on how they teach throughout their career if you're working with them at the start, and just the quality of the educational experience for the students. You actually have quite a significant impact on if you're in that more of a professional development role for that academic on that end of the continuum. So I think as a professional staff member, you need to sort of work out where your academic colleague is on that continuum when you first meet them. And you need to really listen to them talk about the challenges that they're experiencing in their teaching. So if you can understand what their challenges are, then you know where they're at, and then you can bring your expertise to meet them at that point. I think that's really important, to be really open to having a good talk right at the start to work out what their challenges are. And that also for them, because you understand their challenges, you're offering them things which are useful. And so that means they value your input right from the beginning. Every project that you work on, I think, as a professional in the third space can be really different. And each is quite unique and exciting in its own way. And I'd encourage you to relish that opportunity to just dive into these disciplines that otherwise we would have no opportunity to actually, be involved in. And yet here we are, because we have that specific skill set that's needed, we can actually get all these experiences and insights that many people don't have the opportunity to. So, it's a great job. And I think, there's certainly so many opportunities to do lots of very different things. So I'd encourage people to, be an educational developer, designer, technologist, work in the third space.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Fiona. There's definitely so much to be gained from those relationships and in these roles. So thank you for pointing all of those out, make it sound very exciting. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights. To our listeners, we want to say thank you for listening in, and join us for the next episode of Inside the Third Space. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the third space. This episode of Inside the Third Space was presented by me, Zara Khan. Our editor is Morgan Harris, and our producer is Deanna Turner. We were joined today by our guest, Fiona